Hi, it's Dwyer, DwyerFootballNews.com, GamblersAdvisory.com. Remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. I'm making this video on October 29th, 2012. Major developments this weekend. It's the kind that gamblers, in particular futures players, need to think about. Right? The first is that it's all over in the NFC East. Right? The Giants have won the division. Understand there are many outlets out there, media outlets, with broadcast rights on NFL games that have a vested interest in keeping you in suspense, having you believe that there's more uncertainty and hence more excitement with regard to who's going to win these divisions. But the Giants, who really are a second half team, they're a team that tends to turn it on in the months of, late November and December. They already have a stranglehold on the NFC East. They beat the Cowboys yesterday after beating the Redskins the week before. The Cowboys obviously lost. The Redskins lost. The Eagles lost to the Falcons. The Eagles are in shambles. Forget the talent on the Eagles. Look at the production. Yesterday was yet another day of less than 20 points scored. Right? The Eagles may even make a quarterback change in the next 2 weeks. And if they do, they're going to be a team figuring things out as other teams are on the threshold of the playoffs. Certainly the Eagles at this point are not going to challenge the Giants for NFC East supremacy. So my point to you is simply that the Giants, who are really a playoff team, right? They're a team that has the wherewithal to win on the road in the playoffs. Keep in mind, last year they beat Green Bay in Green Bay. They followed that up by beating San Francisco in San Francisco. Take a look at the first Giant run, where, of course, the Giants beat Green Bay in Green Bay during Eli Manning's first Super Bowl run, right? And take a look at the results last year. You'll realize that Tom Coughlin and Eli Manning somehow are a force to be reckoned with on the road in the playoffs. So let's just call it as we see it. The New York Giants have won their division. The Atlanta Falcons have won their division. And you need to pay close attention to this story because, of course, the Falcons play indoors. They have the inside track for the number 1 seed, right? They're unbeaten. Still, they just beat the Eagles in Philadelphia. And keep in mind, as good as the Falcons are indoors, something the Giants are not, something the Chicago Bears are not. They're not indoor teams. Understand that the Super Bowl this year is going to be played indoors. If Atlanta can keep this roll going, they could have the number 1 seed in the NFC and never have to play outdoors in the playoffs. That's something you need to consider. Also, the Chicago Bears. Let's just say that the Bears are in the playoffs. Whether they win their division, that's still up in the air because of some of the teams in their division, right? But I do believe that they won a game against Carolina they should have lost. That win puts them in perfect position. Understand you have a reverse dynamic here. Who's going to beat the Bears outdoors in the playoffs? Right? The Bears are a force to be reckoned with. The bottom line is the Bears have punched their ticket to the playoffs already. So when you look at the NFC, understand that 3 of the playoff spots have already been reserved. And the 3 teams with those spots are juggernaut teams. Right? The Giants, they're the reigning champions. You know they can win the Super Bowl because they won the most recent Super Bowl with pretty much the same personnel, the same quarterback, the same defensive line. The names are the same. Jason Pierre-Paul, Justin Tuck, they're still there. Ozzie Umenyiora, right? The Giants, the Falcons, and the Chicago Bears. Now let's talk about some of the other teams. When you see the Green Bay Packers unable to cover the spread at home against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the Jaguars are missing key players, you really have to ask yourself what's going on with this team. Yes, they're winning. Yes, they've won now several in a row. But this Packer team, without Charles Woodson, are they really the kind of team that can just go out there and rout teams they're supposed to beat? As good as Aaron Rodgers has looked, and he's looked great, the bottom line is they're not looking as dominant as they should. Let's go further. The Minnesota Vikings. Unfortunately, it's a quarterback league. Unfortunately for the Vikings, Christian Ponder is looking like a young, confused quarterback. Right? Does Christian Ponder have the legs to hang with the Eli Mannings and Matt Ryans of the world? At this point, I'm a skeptic. Let me also say, the teams that are a little bit on the outside, trying to position themselves. The Detroit Lions actually did themselves a big favor yesterday by winning their game. They're 3-4, but they have a winnable game next week. They get to 4-4 with that offense, quarterback who threw for more than 5,000 yards last year, arguably the dominant wide receiver in the league right now in Calvin Johnson. I know we got shut down yesterday, but understand that seemed to open up the field for Titus Young, who has more than replaced Nate Burleson at that other wide receiver position. I would say that the Lions, who could well be 500 after next week, are still viable. Right? I think the Pack's still viable. I think the Lions are still viable. Let's now talk about the NFC West briefly. Huge game tonight. I can't emphasize that enough. The San Francisco 49ers, like the Philadelphia Eagles, for some reason have been less than exemplary offensively. Right? Randy Moss belongs on the side of milk cartons. He's been completely missing in their attack. They don't really have that deep threat wide receiver. Where is their first round pick from the last NFL draft? Right? Frank Gore is gaining all kind of yards, but Frank Gore is the kind of guy who you need to pace because you don't want him getting hurt and banged up and unable to play in the playoffs. Frank Gore has had injury problems in the past. He's had a blown out ACL in the past. So you need to pace him. Well, they're facing an Arizona squad in Arizona that, quite frankly, is going to be awfully hard to beat. This Arizona team seems to be, in my opinion, better than advertised. I think tonight's game, and I know the Niners are favored by 6.5 points, but I think tonight's game is a dangerous game for the San Francisco 49ers. They better win it to keep pace, right? Because keep in mind, they need to be concerned about playoff seeding, given that certain teams are very fast out the blocks, right? You still have an unbeaten Atlanta team. The Giants seem to be back. Look at the Bears' record, right? If the Niners make the playoffs, you want them to at least be able to challenge for a home field game. Right now, thanks to losses to teams like the Giants, who San Francisco couldn't beat in San Francisco. They certainly don't want to be traveling across the country to face the Giants in the playoffs, right? And thanks to a loss to Minnesota, a team that right now looks a bit, let's say, overachieving. The Niners are in a precarious situation where they really do need to win intra-divisional games like this game against Arizona. Keep in mind, Arizona's a team that beat New England already this year. Right? Arizona is a dangerous team. They are one of the better coached teams in this league. If you don't know about Ken Wisenhunt, you need to find out about him, right? Also, let's talk Seattle. I know Seattle lost a heartbreaker yesterday, literally in the closing minutes, against, in my opinion, a still viable Detroit Lion team, right? Understand, Seattle, statistically, has one of the best defenses in the league. And as much as we talk about Andrew Luck and RG3 and Ryan Tannehill, we're going to have to start talking about Russell Wilson. He's having quite a season. He has quite an arm. That guy is good. So I believe Seattle is still in the mix. My point is simply that no team right now has a stranglehold, in my opinion, on the NFC West. Those teams are still grappling with each other to figure things out, right? And so tonight's game takes on added significance. If the Niners lose tonight's game, you need to start asking yourself, even with their great defense, what will they be able to do to leapfrog the Giants, the Bears, the Falcons? If the answer is nothing, then if you're a futures bettor, even though the Niners made the NFC Championship game last year, you're going to have a raised eyebrow, right? You're going to have to think twice, even at compelling odds. Let me also say this too. Alex Smith had an excellent year last year. I'm not as sold on Alex Smith as I am Eli Manning or Matt Ryan. Alex Smith reminds me of a Jake Cutler, where, you look at him, you say, yeah, we can win some games with this guy, but can this guy carry us? I question that. If Kurt Warner, who I consider a great quarterback, were the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers, I have little doubt that Randy Moss would be a much bigger part of this offense, and that the ball would be spread all over the field, and that it would open up running lanes for Frank Gore, right? Unfortunately, Kurt Warner is in a booth, safely retired, and the Niners have to make do with Alex Smith. And unfortunately for the Niners, the backup, Colin Kaepernick, really doesn't have extensive NFL experience, right? He's not Charlie Batch even at this stage of his career. So, I'm in the Bay Area. I know in the Bay Area, they just feel that the Niners are going to lay waste to the rest of the NFC. I know the Vegas odds makers, who've placed the Niners on the road as a 6.5-point favorite, feel that the Niners are the team to beat in the NFC West. All I can say is, not so fast. They have a lot of work to do. They have a lot of teams to catch. Tonight's game will be very interesting in Arizona. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here about the NFC, your observations on what's going on. Just to sum up, I think 3 teams in the NFC are in the playoffs already. Giants, Falcons, Bears. I think that the Falcons and the Giants have already won their divisions. In other words, half of the divisions have already been decided in the NFC. And I think teams like the Falcons and the Giants are going to be awfully hard to beat in the playoffs, in part due to the fact that the Falcons will be playing indoors and the fact that the Giants have experience, have rings, know what to expect, won't be fazed by the magnitude of the moment. Let me know what you think. Leave your comments for me here online. Visit us at gamblersadvisory.com and dwyerfootballnews.com. Thanks for watching.